I still remember the weight of that cardboard box in my hands. It wasn't heavy, just a few old photos, a childhood stuffed rabbit, and my mother's wedding ring. The true weight was in my brother's words. Standing in our childhood home, mourners still mingling in the living room, Marcus had pulled me aside, handed me that box, and said those words that would change everything. "You're no longer our responsibility." The rain pattered against the funeral home's windows earlier that day, matching the rhythm of whispered condolences. Mom's death wasn't unexpected. The cancer had taken its time, methodical in its destruction. What I hadn't anticipated was the family implosion that would follow. I'd spent 3 years as her caretaker. 3 years of missed promotions, paused relationships, and sleepless nights while my siblings built their lives elsewhere. Marcus with his perfect family in their perfect colonial house, Eliza with her thriving practice and second home in Maine, and me, Daria, the one who stayed. The one who administered medication, changed sheets, and held our mother's hand during those final, frightening hours. "You chose to stay," Marcus had said when I called for help that first year. "Nobody asked you to be a martyr." But what choice did I really have? Our father had been gone for a decade. Hospice care was limited, and not Marcus, not Eliza had offered an alternative. So I had moved back into my childhood bedroom at 32, trading my apartment and assistant editor position for a twin bed and part-time remote work that barely covered my student loans. The funeral itself was picture perfect, as orchestrated by Eliza. White lilies, string quartet, catered reception. My siblings swept in with their families, managed the service with practiced efficiency, and accepted condolences with appropriate solemnity. I stood to the side, exhaustion seeping from my bones. 3 years of caregiving had hollowed me out, left me raw and exposed. I'd expected gratitude, or at least acknowledgement. What I got was that box. "We've decided to sell the house," Marcus continued, his voice businesslike, detached. "Eliza and I split the costs of Mom's care facility and final arrangements. We're selling the rest to recoup our expenses." My mind reeled. What care facility? She was here with me. "The last 3 months," he clarified, checking his watch. "The hospice nurse, the medications. That wasn't free, Daria." I stared at him, disbelief spreading through me like ice water. "I paid for the at-home care. I used my savings, maxed out my credit cards." "And that was your choice," Eliza interjected, appearing beside us. Her black dress was impeccable, not a wrinkle in sight. "We handled the big expenses. The funeral alone was nearly $15,000. I looked between them, my flesh and blood, and saw nothing familiar. These weren't the siblings who had built blanket forts with me, who had sworn solemn playground oaths of eternal loyalty. These were strangers wearing my family's faces. "I need to sit down," I said, my legs suddenly unsteady. "The house needs to be cleared out by the end of the month," Marcus continued as if I hadn't spoken. "We've got buyers lined up. The market's hot right now." I clutched the box tighter. "This is my home. I've been living here." "Temporarily," Eliza cut in. "Mom's gone now. We all need to move forward." Move forward to where? I wanted to scream. My apartment was long gone, my career derailed, my savings depleted. While they had been building lives, I had been dismantling mine piece by piece. "What about Mom's insurance policy?" I asked, grasping at straws. "She always said that would be for all of us." The glance my siblings exchanged told me everything. "We've already allocated those funds," Marcus said carefully. "Legal expenses, outstanding medical bills. There's nothing left." Nothing left. The words echoed in my head as guests continued their somber mingling just rooms away. Unaware of the execution happening in the kitchen, I opened the box again, staring at the meager contents. A life reduced to trinket. "I gave up everything," I whispered, more to myself than to them. "Nobody asked you to," Eliza replied, her voice sharp with finality. "That was your choice." And then they left me there, box in hand, to rejoin the mourners and accept more condolences for their tremendous loss. I didn't cry. Not then. The numbness was too complete, too consuming. Instead, I methodically walked through the house that wouldn't be mine for much longer, touching door frames, countertops, windowsills, memorizing the feel of the only stability I had left. In my mother's room, I sat on the bed where she had taken her last breath just 1 week ago. Her scent still lingered faintly lavender and that specific lotion she always used. I opened her nightstand drawer, not sure what I was looking for until I found it, her small leather address book, worn at the edges from decades of use. And tucked inside it, a sealed envelope with my name written in her increasingly shaky handwriting. My dearest Daria, if you're reading this, I've left this world behind, and you've been so brave throughout it all. You stayed when leaving would have been easier. You gave when others only took. For that, I can never thank you enough. What I can do is protect you, even after I'm gone. Remember the blue folder in my filing cabinet? The one I had you witness last year? That was my updated will. No matter what Marcus or Eliza might tell you, I made provisions for you. The house is to be sold, yes, but the proceeds are to be split 3 ways. Furthermore, my insurance policy is to be divided equally. They will not tell you this. I know my other children too well. They have their father's sense of entitlement. That's why I've left a copy of all documents with my attorney, James Whitaker. His card is enclosed. You have always been the heart of this family, even when we didn't deserve you. Now it's time for you to live for yourself. All my love, Mom. I sat motionless, the letter trembling in my hands. Then, for the first time since her diagnosis, I allowed myself to truly break down. Not just for her loss, but for the betrayal, for the years given and the futures delayed. I cried until there was nothing left, until I was as empty as the house would soon be. When morning came, I called James Whitaker. The meeting was set for the following day, a sterile conference room downtown, all glass and chrome. I arrived early, clutching my mother's letter like a shield. Marcus and Eliza arrived together, exchanging confused glances when they saw me. "What's this about?" Marcus asked, his confidence already wavering. James Whitaker, a man in his 60s with silver hair and piercing eyes, didn't waste time with pleasantries. "I've called you here regarding the execution of Evelyn Fisher's will, which appears to have been misrepresented." The color drained from Eliza's face. "We discussed this already. Everything was settled." "Not according to the legally binding document I have," James replied, sliding copies across the table. "Your mother was very explicit about her wishes." What followed was both vindicating and heartbreaking. The systematic dismantling of their lies, the revelation of funds already transferred, accounts emptied, preparations made to cut me out completely. "This is ridiculous," Marcus sputtered, his handsome face contorted with rage. "She wasn't in her right mind when she signed this." James raised an eyebrow. "The document was notarized and witnessed 8 months ago. Her doctor has provided a statement confirming her mental competency." Eliza turned to me, tears welling in her eyes, whether from shame or fury, I couldn't tell. "You planned this. You manipulated her when she was vulnerable." I met her gaze steadily. "Number, I just stayed." The aftermath was messy, as family implosions always are. Legal threats were made, then withdrawn when their lawyer advised against it. The house was sold, as planned, but the proceeds were distributed according to my mother's wishes. The insurance policy, which they had already begun to spend, had to be repaid from their portions. I rented a small apartment across town with my share and began rebuilding. Applications, interviews, rejection letters that gradually gave way to opportunities, small steps back toward the life I had put on hold. 6 months after the funeral, I received a text from Marcus. "We should talk." I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I took a walk to the park where we had played as children, sat on a bench, and considered the cost of forgiveness. Could I ever look at them again without seeing that box in my hands? Without hearing those cutting words? I didn't know, but I did know that I wasn't the same Daria who had shrunk under their dismissal, who had accepted their version of events as truth. "I'm not ready yet," I finally replied. "Maybe someday." It wasn't closure. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was honest. And after years of sacrificing my truth for family peace, honesty felt like oxygen, essential and clarifying. A year passed, then another. I built a life that was unmistakably mine. New job, new friends, even a tentative relationship. Eliza sent Christmas cards that I didn't reciprocate. Marcus called on birthdays, leaving voicemails I rarely returned. The hurt had dulled to an occasional ache rather than a constant wound. Then came the evening when my doorbell rang unexpectedly. I opened it to find Eliza standing there, older, somehow smaller than I remembered. "I brought Mom's recipes," she said without preamble, holding out a familiar wooden box. "I thought you might want them." I hesitated, then stepped aside to let her in. We sat at my small kitchen table, the recipe box between us like a bridge neither was quite ready to cross. "I've been seeing a therapist," she said finally, eyes fixed on the table. "Turns out I've got some issues with control and entitlement." The understatement startled a laugh from Short and Genuine. "Yeah, just a few," I agreed. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I am asking if we could try something. Not what we were before. That's gone. But maybe something new." I looked at her, really looked, and saw not the polished, perfect sister who had dismissed my sacrifices, but a flawed, struggling human, just like me. "I can't promise anything," I said honestly, "but we can try." She nodded, and the relief in her eyes was almost painful to witness. As she left, she paused at the door. "You know, Mom always said you were the strongest of us all." I didn't understand what she meant until now. After she was gone, I opened the recipe box. There, nestled among the index cards in my mother's handwriting, was a small envelope. Inside was a check, my third of the funeral expenses, returned with interest, and a note. "This doesn't fix anything, but it's a start." And maybe, just maybe, it was. For 3 years, I had been the family caretaker. Then, I was the family outcast. Now, I was simply Daria, still carrying the scars of what had happened, but no longer defined by them. Sometimes family breaks you apart before you can rebuild yourself stronger. Sometimes you have to lose everything to discover what you're truly worth. And sometimes the heaviest burden to put down isn't responsibility, it's the weight of other people's expectations. So if you're standing where I once stood, clutching your own version of that cardboard box, wondering how the people who should love you most could cast you aside so easily, know this: their failure to value you is not evidence of your worth. It's evidence of their limitation. And one day, you'll look back and realize that being cut off wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of your real life. Have you ever had to choose between family obligations and your own well-being? Did you ever discover that your sacrifices went unappreciated? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. Drop a 1 if this story resonated with you, or let me know what city or state you're watching from. Remember to subscribe for more stories about finding strength when you're at your lowest. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say isn't, "I love you," or "I forgive you." Sometimes it's simply, "I'm not yours to discard."